thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar about teaching elementary history. I'm going to let my parents, Ray and Charlene, introduce themselves and get us started. So thank you all for being here. And again, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, and we will try to get to those as we go through. So, hi Mom and Dad, take it away.
Hi.
Thanks, John. Thanks for helping us get started and working through this. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this event. I'm Ray Notgrass. This is my wife, Charlene, and we are part of Notgrass History, and we are delighted to be able to share our curriculum with you, but tonight to share some ideas about teaching your elementary-aged children with confidence. We want to help you to be more confident in this important job that you are doing. And I want to remind you that God's in charge, that God reigns even over technical computer difficulties and whatever else might happen. He will bless you and He will bring about good in your home. I want to remind you that you are the parent, you are the adult, you are capable, and you have abilities and you have resources that will enable you to teach your children well. You are doing a good thing. You are doing something that is important, something that you believe is right for your children, and I believe God will bless that. He will honor that. And I want to encourage you to be interested in learning yourself. If you're interested in learning, then your children will catch your enthusiasm for that. And so I encourage you to enter this opportunity of teaching your children with a spark of joy, with a sense of purpose and a desire to honor God and bless your children. And I believe God will bless that. And I want at this point to introduce our daughter, Mary Evelyn McCurdy, who was herself homeschooled and who is now homeschooling some very important people to us, and that is some of our grandchildren. And she and Charlene are going to take it from here, and so come on in, Mary Evelyn.
And while Mary Evelyn is joining us, I just want to say that I agree with Ray. What you're doing is powerfully important. There's so many other ways you could be spending your days than homeschooling, but you have chosen what is so very, very important. You've embraced your role as a parent. You're devoting your days and your weeks and your months and your years to just the most important work that you could be doing. You're nurturing the precious human beings that God has placed in your care. The world says that what really matters is maybe what happens in academics and sports and on the playing field and on television and in music recordings and things like that. But Proverbs teaches us that children need to be learning from their moms and dads, and that teaching will go with them and train them and talk to them the rest of their lives. And so I'm so proud of you for what you're doing. We had some questions ahead of time that I'd like to I'll take the first one. And one was about integrating subjects. This just makes so much sense to me because integrated subjects is how I live every day, how Mary Evelyn lives every day, how all of you live every day. I know that you're putting a load in the washer while you have a baby on your hip, and then you leave there and go look for your phone because you heard it beep. That's how life is. It's not compartmentalized into little bitty nuggets. And school teaches us that it is that way, but that's not the way it really is. So we think it is so important that you integrate subjects, and that's exactly how we write all of our curriculum. there is no way that a mother of 4 children can divide every subject and with all of those children. That's just too much curriculum and too hard for you to do. And along with that, I'd like to say one thing that will help you so much in your homeschooling is if you will realize you can't cover everything, because the universe is everything and you can't cover it, so you might as well get over it. But even though you can't cover everything, you can count everything. And Mary Evelyn, I think, is doing a wonderful job in her homeschool. I am very proud of the job she's doing with some of our grandchildren. And so she's going to talk to you a little bit right now about very practical, everyday, the way she homeschools.
Not because I am by any stretch of the imagination an expert. My oldest is in 2nd grade, so I've been at the official homeschooling for 3 years. Our children are 7, 5, 2, and 8 months. And I totally get the struggle of he needs a diaper change, he needs help on the potty, he needs his nose wiped, she is fussy about math right now, I've got to get lunch going, we haven't gotten to science yet. I totally get it. That is how it is homeschooling with little kids. I understand. I wish I had a lot of just blinding insight answers for you. I don't. I thought I'd just share a little bit with you tonight. Ever since I was a homeschooled teenager, I looked forward to the day that I hoped I would get to homeschool, to be a homeschool mom. I am so thankful for my parents for making the decision to homeschool me, and just so thankful that I have this opportunity to homeschool my own kids now. I started collecting books and other resources when I was a teenager, and it's really cool now to get to use those with my children. But I honestly did not know it would be this hard. Being a homeschool mom is really hard. And I confess to having random thoughts some days, like, boy, I thought this was a good idea, but I just don't know. But in my more sane moments, I know this is a really good idea. It's a really good thing. And I'm so glad I get to do it and so glad you're doing it. I commend you for what you're doing. It's hard work, I know, but you're doing a really important job. So just some random thoughts about things that we do that some days work. Hey, they don't always work, but in our homeschooling, pray at the beginning of the school day. That's always a good one. I have a schedule with times that I want us to be doing particular subjects. Often it doesn't actually go that way, but it's really nice to have that framework. Only in the last few months did I actually set down times. Okay, at 8:30 I want us to be doing this, at 9 o'clock this. Before it was just kind of, we'll try to get to these subjects on these days, but I have found for me that it's very helpful to have a framework, even if I'm not always able to stick to it. Yesterday, for example, it was time for us to do something all together, but the 5-year-old and the 2-year-old were playing so wonderfully together. I really didn't want to say, hey guys, come to the table. I just thought, I'm going to leave them doing that, and I'm going to do math with the 7-year-old because it's quiet in here. She'll be less distracted. So that's part of the beauty of homeschooling. We have flexibility to do things that work better for this moment on this day. Might not always be the same thing, but it's good to have a schedule, but it's good to have flexibility too. Some ideas for PE. My kids love when we do something like exercise a story, I call it. I'll just make up a story about a caterpillar turning into a butterfly and add some flourishes and frills about what happens to the butterfly, and we act like we're a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, things like that. Acting out different Bible passages, pretending we're different animals. That's something new I've started doing recently just to get some wiggles out at the beginning of the school day, and they really enjoy that. I like to have our Bible time together, and some things, of course, I like to do with everybody together, and then I try to have specific times where it's just one-on-one with one of the children and me. and they tend to really be very protective of that time. They really like that time when it's just they're an only child for a few minutes and it's just me, and we get to have some fun time together. But then I like to break it up to do things together, do things one-on-one. Usually we end the school time back all together. One thing that's been great for us is having what I call an exhibition at the end of our school year. We invite grandparents to come to our house, and the kids recite poems and Bible passages and show some special projects that they've done. And it's a really nice thing for me through the year to kind of look forward to and think, okay, I want this to turn out well. I want to show this to the grandparents at the end of the year, and something to encourage the kids. You need to learn this poem because you're going to say this at the exhibition, and they get excited about it. That's been a nice way to close out the year.
Can I say, it's absolutely wonderful. I always look forward to it. It is fabulous. And if you have a reluctant grandparent who's not so excited about your homeschooling, which I know is a reality for many mamas, this is a good way to counteract some of that, to give them an opportunity to see exactly what it is you have been doing.
One fun thing that we did, I think it was last year, that I had the kids memorize the presidents, mainly our daughter who's 7, but our son who was 4 at the time got a lot of them down. He impressed us with what he got. But I have flashcards of the presidents up on the wall going around where we do our schoolwork. And it's really been a great point of reference as we've been doing various history lessons, because even though they can't grasp the realities of all the different eras yet and all of that, they have a name and a face from the founding of our nation to Donald Trump. And so if something comes up in a lesson, I can point to the card and say it's when he was president, or this person was born around the time that this person was president. And it just helps them make some connections in their brains. And also, as we're reading through history lessons and it mentions a president, it can click in their minds. I've heard of that person. So that's been a great thing.
I want to tell, grandparents love to tell grandchildren stories. This is one of my favorite recent ones. We went to the state capitol recently for what the Tennessee Home Education Association calls Rally Day to promote homeschooling with legislators. And we were in a committee meeting, and Mary Evelyn's 2-year-old came over and sat next to me and looked at me and said, Donald Trump. So even the 2-year-old is catching on a little bit. So one of our questions was about multiple ages. And even the little guys can garner a lot of information.
Yes, he has, for some reason, latched on to the last name as the older two have recited the presidents, get to the end, Donald Trump, and he loves to say the 2 words, Donald Trump. They're just really fun. I guess they feel good in his mouth or something, and he will tell people, you are Donald Trump, or you are Miss Donald Trump. That happens a lot at our house.
Is it
Go ahead.
my turn? Okay. One of the questions we had was about covering history in the early grades. And I'd like to just tell you what we think at Notgrass History and why we do what we do the way we do. In our big plan, when we finish all of our history curriculum package writing, we plan to have students do American history once in grades 1 through 4, again in 1 year, sometime between grades 1 and 4, again between grades 5 and 8, and again in high school. And also world history in those 3 ages, civics / government / economics / American geography, once in each of those categories, and then a world geography in each of those age groups. And by saying that, I'm laying down a principle that I think is really important. I think when in the elementary grades, which is such a precious time in your family, I encourage you not to overburden yourself or your children in the elementary grades. I was talking to a homeschool mom at a homeschool convention last weekend, and I told her, if God gave me the opportunity to start all over and homeschool our children all the way through again, I would jump at the chance. And I know where a lot of you are. You cannot imagine wanting to do it again because it was so hard today, and you're scared it's going to be hard tomorrow. But you do not have to teach your child everything they ever need to know this year. The way we write our history, for example, take American history, they learn a few stories when they are in 1st through 4th grade, and then they reinforce some of those in grades 5, 6, 7, or 8, and they learn more. And then in high school, they do some more review, and they learn more and take it deeper. So that's a very important principle, I believe, in history with children, is to realize that you cannot just do it once and it's done. I mean, you can't do that with any other subject either, and you can't do it with history. So we believe it's a really good idea to build. You start with very basic principles in the elementary grades, lots and lots of stories, hands-on activities, pretending, visiting historic sites, and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And do you...
I was going to comment about field trips are great. Some days it feels like, I don't know if we should take a day off of school because we weren't able to do it 1 or 2 days last week, but it really is great to use these early years to open their eyes to other places. You might be surprised at what's available in your own hometown. Lots of towns have a history museum. Our little town of less than 1,000 people has a history museum with so many old toys and tools and dishes and different things from this area that the kids just get really excited to see. I took them a few weeks ago to our local Veterans Hall and Archives. We had been studying World War II, and it was just great to be able to show them pictures of people from this area who fought in those wars that we read about in the books. It is good to make history as personal as we can and realize it's not just what we read about in books. It's the brother of the lady that we go to church with who died during World War II. And, his picture is in the local Veterans Hall. It's the lady who gives you a sticker every Sunday. That's her brother right there, and he died in World War II. So it makes it a lot more real for them. We like to visit historic sites and take our kids to festivals here and there. In our most recent publication, Our Star-Spangled Story, which is American history for elementary, we have a weekly project in there. And some weeks we do those as a whole family in the evening with Daddy too. And those are some special times when we can all experience the projects together.
Well, we are also thought we would show you Our Star-Spangled Story. So Mary Evelyn brought those books in with her when she came into the camera a while ago. It is 90 lessons, 45 lessons per semester, and we do 45 lessons in a book, very richly illustrated, with lots of historic pictures, with art. And at the end of every lesson, we give some ideas. We have map work that the students can do. We have review questions for mom and the kids or dad and the kids to discuss. We have ideas of how they can play. Once per unit, we have a hands-on project like a recipe or a craft or something like that. I was up at Mary Evelyn's house yesterday and saw one of the kids' Our Star-Spangled Stories crafts hanging in the window, and of course that really warms this grandmother's heart. We do 3 lessons per unit and 30 units a year, and that way you can easily finish it in a year. A typical school year has 180 days, and we have 90 lessons. We also, in addition to the lessons, with Notgrass History, we always publish a book of primary sources, and with Our Star-Spangled Story, the primary source book is Rhythms and Rhymes, and that is folk songs and folk dances and poetry from various times in American history. We also recommend 8 wonderful works of children's fiction that the mom reads aloud, or if a 4th grader's doing it, then the 4th grader might read it himself or herself. But those are spread out over the years and really add to what the student is learning. It also has a timeline that we use for review. And all of this is on our website, notgrass.com, and you can look at all of these pieces of this curriculum. And also, Mary Evelyn and I have done a short video, couple of minutes, and then we have a longer video that explains how you use Our Star-Spangled Story. But we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you for coming. And I'm sure, Mary Evelyn, you'd like to say bye to everybody, too.
Do we have any questions that anybody would like to ask? Or any comments to share? John, are you still with us?
Do you have any questions you want to tell us about John? We don't
I heard
know.
some feedback on his end.
Oh,
He might not be
okay.
able to.
What grade is Our Star-Spangled Story for?
Oh,
It's grades 1 through 4. It's a 1-year program to be done in grades 1 through 4.
this is the first in a series that we're planning to do for this age group. So all Notgrass History is, we publish it for a 4-year age span. And we do that so that families who have more than one child in that age span, so they can buy one curriculum and do it together with everybody. So this is the first in our series. Mary Evelyn and I are currently working on an American geography and civics, sort of a states and capitals kind of curriculum we're very excited about, and then eventually we plan to do a world geography and a world history also. But Our Star-Spangled Story is ready to go, ready for families to use. We're excited that John has used it this year with our 6-year-old grandson, and that Mary Evelyn is using it with our 7-year-old granddaughter.
Someone did share a question earlier wondering what history to cover in the early grades. Should it be world? Should it be American? I don't really feel like there's a right or a wrong answer to that. For our family, I have enjoyed doing American, feeling like it's a little more touchable and understandable for the early grades. Just seems like it's easier for them to wrap their minds around this country that they already know. That's just my personal opinion. And that is the first one that we have developed for this 4-year range, 1st through 4th grade. So that's all that we have to offer right now, but I really feel like it's whatever works well for your family.
Let me say just a little bit more about that. There are lots of wonderful history programs that are spread out over a long period of times, maybe 4 years or so. At Notgrass History, we have decided to cover, as I was saying before, 4 different subject categories: geography, government, world history, and American history in 3 times. So a student, if you went with us all the way through 12 grades, when we get everything written, then you would do each of those 4 subjects 4 different times at 3 different times at 3 different levels.
Someone commented that their kids like to hear stories about history, and that is something we are firm believers in, making history personal, telling stories. I have a niece and a nephew who are going through Our Star-Spangled Story also, and they also love the stories in it. We try to give some information about big picture things that are happening while focusing on an individual child or an individual family who really experienced it. So you get the big picture, but in a personal way.
Let me give an example of that. This wasn't one of the lessons I wrote or did the research for it. I was so excited when I read it. Instead of a long, detailed explanation about how America built railroads, the children learn about that by learning about a dog named Oni who used to ride trains for years and years. This dog kind of belonged to all the postal workers who carried the mail on trains. And this dog just kind of adopted them and traveled with them. And it's a precious story about a dog. And of course, children can learn about the railroads probably better through this little dog than they could with a lot of technical information. There's time later for that sort of thing. But when they learn, say, about the Transcontinental Railroad, then they'll have this dog. They've already learned a little bit about the railroad through that. Any other questions?
Yes, some questions about what's the difference between our elementary curriculum and our middle school, and what if you have a first, third, and fifth, or a fourth and sixth grader? How can you combine those different ages?
We try to, of course there's going to be some overlap because, you got to talk about George Washington every time, for example. But we try to focus on different aspects of the story that we're covering. Let's take American history, for example. It is telling the same overarching story, but we try to focus on different things, thinking what would particularly interest the different age groups, and also what they are ready for, what they're emotionally ready to hear about, some of the difficult topics. Try to deal with it in a gentle and appropriate way for each age. What else do you want to add?
Well, the part of that question, I think, was what if you have a 4th grader who technically falls into what we call our elementary curriculum, and then a 6th grader who technically falls into our middle school. I got a question just the other day here at the office about that very thing. A mother called. She had twins who were in the 8th grade and a freshman who was in the 9th grade, obviously. So she had 3 children, 1 in 9th, 2 in 8th, and she called asking me if she could use our middle school history, world history from Adam to Us with her 9th grader. So we just chatted about it, and I found out what her overall plan was for her high school student. And in the state that she lives in, it was her understanding that she might just have to have 3 years actually of high school social studies credit. So I just told her, as a mother, I wouldn't hesitate to do that this year if she wants to. She's got time, in her case, that her 9th grader can spend a year doing that. We have freedom as homeschooling mothers. We always made sure we were obeying the laws of our state and making sure our children had the high school graduation requirements they had to have. But beyond that, we were very flexible in what we did. And so I suggested to her that she might want to make the writing assignments longer for her older daughter, that she might add more books for her to read. But let me say, I am talking to you mom to mom here. Don't come back and tell me my child didn't get into MIT because I followed your advice. I'm just encouraging everybody to be a homeschooling family, not be afraid to make choices that might be different from what other people are doing, but to always make sure you're not shortchanging your child by making a decision that's going to make it hard for them down the road.
We do have sample units of all our courses on our website, so you can look at them in detail. You can download 3 weeks worth of lessons to get a good feel for which might be the best fit for your child. But we are definitely of the mindset of you're the parents, do what you think is best for your children. And if you think your 5th grader would do great studying with the 3rd grader, doing what we say is for first through 4th graders, that is totally 100% absolutely fine. They're going to get a great overview of American history, and or if you want to use our 5th through 8th with your 4th grader and your 7th grader, that is totally fine. It's up to you, and we know a lot of families have used our courses with children that are outside the officially, what we say this is for. We have to give an age guideline on it, but you're the parent, and it's really okay.
Okay, I think we're doing good answering the questions. This has been great. Thank you all for joining us. We'll send out an email with just to follow up, and if you have any more questions, feel free to contact us on our website. You can send us an email, you can text us, you can call, and one of our team members will be glad to help you out and answer any additional questions you have. So thank you, Mom and Nev, for sharing from your perspective and experience, and thank you all for taking your children's education seriously and investing deeply in them. So we're going to sign off and wish you all the best. Take care. Talk to you later.
Bye.